So everybody, I haven't done a video in a while, and it's been a long journey between the last and the now. And what I'm going to share with you right now is that we are literally going through the birth of a new consciousness in the human, really. But if you look behind me, these trees, might be able to hear the creek behind me, the grass below me, the moss. That consciousness in those energy fields doesn't experience time and shifts of consciousness the way that we do as a human. And so our human consciousness is going through a rebirth. And you can see maybe a little story. So I'm in Asheville, North Carolina now, which is kind of a new development over the last few weeks. And since I arrived, I went deep into an old grieving that my system carried since I was about 6 years old. And so about 40 some years. And when I looked at it, when I was super sick, and I went to the ER, there was nothing wrong. It was definitely a metaphysical thing. When I looked at it, it was just taking me back to those days and how I shut off the grieving, the natural grieving process, the kind of grieving that just makes you just like a little kid, just cry, snot coming down, tears coming down, just a free flow of that energy. Really, it's just an energy like anything else. And so I spent a couple of weeks in really like a dark furnace with an illness that had nothing to do with a virus or pneumonia or anything, but I had been carrying it for several weeks, and finally it got to an apex. And so I got to journey back into human time, back into my early childhood, and really look at where I shut off the grieving process, the connection to divine, to Christ, to whatever, Buddha, Krishna, whatever image that we would conjure for a heart connection to everything. And so in that period of time, I've been here in Asheville, which really naturally holds that space. If you think of the earth maybe like Lord of the Rings, there's just different pockets of different energies, and so Asheville holds the energy of grieving for the sake of grieving. And like anything else, too much of anything can be too much. So if I were called to stay here for too long, I think I would just get stuck in a bubble of perpetual grieving for no reason. While that's a great experience, it's not a whole experience. And so I was called here to go through that, and I didn't know completely why I was called here for that. Now that I've been coming out of that over the last week and a half, I've really been looking in and going, what's happening? And then I can see around me the thing that people are doing a lot around here. It's a very triggered response by women in the world right now. As a male, I find that to be triggering, especially a male who causes none of the harm that the women are saying that they've experienced in the world. But as a male, I'm kind of one of the chosen. I'm guilty just by gender, right? So I went through a little fire with that even over the last few days, and then it started to flow into me that we're going through a cosmic birth, a cosmic rebirth. And if you're familiar with ancient Indian texts, Vedic texts, Hindu, whatever you want to call it, you'll know that there's the cosmic egg, the Brahman. And so I saw about a week ago, it was just delivered into me in a meditation, that my cosmic egg had been completed. I had gone from start to finish. And now, if you look at it philosophically, you're going to think that that's not possible, but it is possible, because as above, so below. So as without, so within. What we do on our inner journey is the exact same thing that we do on a cosmic level. And so when you arrive in this place, well, historically you don't know what to do next. Well, the next is you've reached ascended master level. You can call it whatever you want. Ascended masters, typically we think of as Christ or Buddha or Krishna. There's so many names out there. But they've really completed the circuit. And we're evolving into that in ourselves. And before you go through that, you go through a birth canal, like a really, really strong rebirth, individually and collectively. again, like these trees behind me, they're not going through that. They're going to be trees, right? Until they collapse, go back to the earth. Well, we're in the human consciousness, though, that the thing that creates time and space, and physical form, the way we view it, that is evolving, right? And so what we're seeing right now is the way it's being played out is a lot of women coming forward and saying, "Me too." I want to take my power, and that's a big thing right now. We have NFL stars like refusing to stand for the national anthem, and I agree with that, actually. I mean, I agree with all of the above and more. All the things that we're seeing play out. It's leading to this very, very painful experience, and we're all feeling it. Everybody's like bickering at each other and arguing with each other. Well, that's pressure that goes through the birth canal. That's as we physically enter the world in our youth, our earliest inception, or not inception, but our earliest entering into the world, we go through an immense amount of pressure through a single mother, a physical mother. And so if you want to consider the earth as a mother earth, we're going through the birth canal of that to give birth to a brand new. And it's helpful to know this because people are getting stuck, right? In a way, it's part of the plan, it's part of the journey, but you got to have people who've gone through beforehand, like you've had these other masters on earth who are like, there's more. Well, now the more is that most of us are returning to our ascended master selves while in a body, and we have people who are going through that beforehand to look back, like maybe you can think of like a Sherpa who's climbed Mount Everest a number of times, to be able to say, hey, here's the way, here's how you're going to get to the peak. Now, I can't tell you what you're going to experience along the way. You may even want to stay at base camp for a little while, longer than the other group that I'm bringing forward more, right? But that doesn't mean you're stuck without reason. You're just exploring something there. But you have to know there's more. Otherwise, you do run the risk of being permanently stuck. And when you're permanently stuck, that adds to the collective, and it causes a lot of confusion. And that's really where we are right now. If you know, maybe like Terence McKenna, he calls it like the novelty theory, where consciousness, energy, whatever you want to call it, God, whatever, its only desire, if that's even a word, is to continually complexify itself. And so, naturally, by that order, we are going to evolve even if we stay at base camp. There's an evolution, and it's just going to sweep us forward. But the choices we make to do that within a body require us to take certain actions, and some of those actions are basically to let go of victim mentality, to let go of the idea that there's this one president in the United States that's causing all this chaos and destruction. Because if you really want to flip over to the other side, into your evolutionary state, you have to actually realize that we are all one, and we're all playing a part to push each other forward, and that means there are no exceptions. President, Pope, layman, homeless person, it doesn't matter. Like, we all are playing this role to push each other forward. I'm not in the place where I push now, like when you go through this journey, then you kind of reach this, come on, you kind of coerce the energy this way into this evolutionary state that everybody's trying to reach. And so I think one of the basic tips that I could share with you that's really helped me, and I'm a music person, they're going to be something unique for you, but I created several playlists on my iPad. One of them that I've really listened to a lot over the last 3 weeks has been very dark music, maybe we could say dark music, because it really put me in touch with my creative center. Now, when I was in my early 20s, I would consider that satanic, and that's okay, like whatever you want to call it. It's all really the same. It's just sort of the yin and yang, the dark and the light, fused together, making us kind of more creative. So I've really, over this grieving process, spent a lot of time going into that dark, that deeper, you might say shadowy, you might say feminine, you might say lunar. I'm going to say no, I'm going to call it more Shiva energy, to be honest with you. And it really, like, I went into it and very, very much opened up these channels for me to start to push myself forward and enter the realms of the Creator. Okay, so that's where you're going. That's where we are collectively going, is the era of the Creator. And this is Tantric, because Tantric is all about this. It's weaving everything together, all of it, all things together into one, and creating this boom, this big bang. You create the energy that incepts new life into a new seed. You create the energy that develops that new life while it's incubating, and you create the energy to start to remove the mucus plug to push that new life out, and then you create this big bang that brings that new life into fruition. And that is Tantra, and that is why this is actually, in the terminology from a very, very, very ancient world, is Tantric. It's a very Tantric birth of new consciousness, and we're all going through it together. And the way you got to go through it is by surrendering your ideologies of what is not happening right. Your ideologies of what victimization is bringing you. Your ideologies that there's a they out there that's causing victimization. Your ideologies of a cabal or an Illuminati. Because we're all one. And collectively, all things were created from that one for a purpose. And for the purpose of getting us to where we are now, to expand and grow. So it's all perfect, you know, and Terence McKenna said the exact same thing, and that so many others have. And when you reach that ascended mastery sort of energy and completion within yourself, you recognize that all along everything was perfect, and there was nothing ever that should have changed. And so you got to be able to take this to the next level, and you are being called to do that. And you are being called to get out of base camp and start to move on a little bit, go explore more, because remaining stuck is hurting you, and it's kind of hurting the collective, regardless of the fact that on another level it's actually creating enough friction to cause this birth. That's a little confusing to take in, but the quicker we can let go of old things, the happier we are, and maybe that's the bottom line. Like, the quicker you can let go of victim mentality, the happier you're going to be. And then you'll find that all this energy that's been stored is ready to move forward more in new ways. And then you need a guide, you know? Maybe you'll do it yourself, but if you're a person who's prone to getting stuck, you probably need a guide. I'm going to put my information in here, my new webpage, my Facebook page. Some of the services are Tantric, and shadow work is a big one. Because I could just sit there with you and just walk through these stuck points while you are scared and get more afraid, and I could just help you just as a guide, like a Sherpa, right? It's just that. And so there is a point to all this, and we're going into that. And I'm gonna leave it there for now, and I'm sure I'll do more videos along the way and more blog posts. Thanks for tuning in and sticking around for 13 and some minutes. Okay, all right. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.